From hidden scrolls in desert caves to cannibalistic giants and the literal invention of hell, this is the true scientific and historical origin of every entity in the Book of Enoch. And spoiler alert, the real story is much darker than the myths, because the true monsters didn't have wings. They wore heavy bronze armor. But first, let's start at the exact moment the world discovered the truth. In 1947, Bedouin shepherds tossed a rock into the pitch-black darkness of a cave in the Judean desert and shattered an ancient clay jar. Inside that jar were the Dead Sea Scrolls. For thousands of years, the Book of Enoch was dismissed by the mainstream as a crazy medieval legend. But radiocarbon dating proved these texts were actually written centuries before the Common Era. They were forged by exiled scribes in Qumran, starving men living in an unforgiving, sun-scorched wasteland. These writers channeled their deep political hatred into a terrifying new type of literature, practically inventing the apocalyptic genre as we know it today. And the main target of their absolute hatred was a group known as the Watchers. The ancient myth tells the epic story of 200 fallen angels who descended upon Mount Hermon to corrupt humanity. But modern historians and archaeologists have finally decoded the text. The Watchers were actually the Diadochi, the ruthless and violent generals who inherited the fractured, massive empire of Alexander the Great. The angelic invasion from the sky was actually a literal, boots-on-the-ground Hellenistic military invasion. The Greeks brought devastating siege weapons, advanced iron swords, and an oppressive foreign culture that completely crushed the Judean people. Because the starving scribes couldn't kill these towering tyrants on the battlefield, they did the next best thing. They transformed their oppressors into demonic entities on paper, condemning them to the abyss for all eternity. Which brings us to one of the most famous leaders of these fallen angels, Azazel. The Book of Enoch claims that Azazel ruined the world by teaching men how to forge bronze swords and teaching women how to use cosmetics, precious stones, and mirrors. To a modern reader, this just sounds like dark magic and vanity. But archaeology reveals that this is the exact historical terror of forced cultural assimilation. Azazel represented the advanced metallurgy and the predatory imperial vanity of the invading Greeks. The foreign technology was violently corrupting the local culture, wiping out their ancient traditions, and drowning the world in an endless cycle of blood and warfare. But the Jewish scribes didn't just pull the anatomy of these demons out of thin air. They orchestrated one of the most brilliant and petty literary thefts in human history. If you want to completely destroy your enemy, you take their greatest superheroes and turn them into your worst villains. Archaeologists excavating ancient cuneiform tablets discovered that the Babylonian Empire worshipped creatures called the Apkallu. These were half-human, half-fish celestial sages who supposedly brought advanced civilization, mathematics, and knowledge to humanity. Centuries after being enslaved by Babylon, the authors of Enoch hijacked these sacred foreign myths and completely inverted them. The enlightened, heroic sages of Babylon were aggressively transformed into the demonic, fallen Watchers of Enoch. The advanced civilization they brought to humanity was reclassified as dark witchcraft and the ultimate capital sin. It was the perfect, absolute theological revenge. But all this cosmic corruption and stolen knowledge ended up breeding a far more terrifying earthly fruit, a breed of monsters that would consume the entire world. The Book of Enoch describes the Nephilim as towering giants born from the unholy union of fallen angels and human women. And these titans had an insatiable, ravenous hunger. They quickly devoured all the labor of men, eating through the crops, all the livestock, the birds, and the fish. When the grain silos turned to dust and there was nothing left to consume, the monsters turned their violently hollow stomachs toward humanity itself, drinking the blood right out of human veins. It is a horrifying, apocalyptic image, but historians have successfully decoded this cannibalistic frenzy as a visceral, brilliant metaphor for imperial taxation and systemic starvation. The foreign empires and their endless mercenary armies operated like a plague of locusts. They violently consumed the agricultural wealth of the Judean peasants, draining the lifeblood of the land to feed their massive military campaigns. The literal horror of being eaten alive by a giant was the exact psychological reflection of a society being crushed and starved by the economic exploitation of the Greeks and Romans. And when the starving peasants finally cried out to the heavens for help, God's response was not a gentle message of peace. It was a masterpiece of calculated apocalyptic cruelty. The Archangel Gabriel was dispatched to the blood-soaked earth with a single, ruthless mission: to turn the colossal bastards against one another. In the historical reality of the ancient world, this perfectly mirrored the catastrophic wars of the Diadochi, where Alexander the Great's successors spent decades violently tearing the known world apart. The scribes watched as the Hellenistic armies slaughtered each other in endless, grinding civil wars, and they framed this geopolitical chaos as a divinely orchestrated bloodbath. Angelic fathers were forced to watch, completely powerless, as their monstrous children ripped each other limb from limb in a war of total extinction. And while the giants drowned in their own severed veins, the absolute sword of divine justice turned toward the architects of the rebellion. Michael, the supreme commander of the heavenly host, descended to chain the fallen leaders Semyaza and Azazel. He dragged them into a jagged, desolate wasteland called Dudail, burying them alive under mountains of sharp, suffocating rocks. This was the ultimate revenge fantasy of the powerless scribes: to see the invincible, glittering Greek generals stripped of their armor, chained by their hands and feet, and suffocating in pitch-black darkness, unable to ever see a single beam of light again. But simply burying tyrants alive under the desert dirt wasn't enough. The authors needed to guarantee that their oppressors would suffer long after their physical bodies gave out. So, the angel of thunder and tremors, Uriel, guided Enoch through the terrifying, hollow bowels of the underworld to reveal a groundbreaking concept. He exposed 4 stony, infinitely deep caverns where the souls of the dead were violently stockpiled and segregated before the final judgment. This was one of the very first times in human history that the concept of a physical, punitive hell was explicitly mapped out on paper. It was a revolutionary psychological weapon forged by the oppressed. It guaranteed that even if a cruel, wealthy emperor died peacefully in his golden bed, completely untouched by human justice, his soul would be dragged into absolute, suffocating darkness to suffer endless, visceral agony. The echoes of murdered spirits continuously reverberate through these dark, claustrophobic caves, demanding a cosmic justice that the physical world could never provide. This terrifying underground waiting room was incredibly popular. In fact, in the ancient world, the Book of Enoch was a massive bestseller. It dictated the absolute rules of heaven and hell for early Christians and radical Jewish sects. But soon, the highest religious authorities realized they had a massive radioactive problem on their hands. The early church fathers and the leading rabbinic scholars of the first centuries looked at the Book of Enoch and realized a terrifying theological flaw. If angels, the highest beings of perfect divine order, could feel primitive lust, commit high treason, and breed genetic monsters, then the entire structure of heaven was deeply compromised. This radical concept erased the comforting illusion of a perfect paradise. It shifted the blame for earthly suffering away from human frailty and placed it directly onto the chaotic nature of the cosmos. The religious authorities could not allow the unchecked spread of a theology that made the creators of the universe look completely out of control. The decree against the text was absolute and ruthless. The Book of Enoch was officially branded as dangerous radioactive heresy, triggering a massive campaign of spiritual and physical erasure. Scrolls were systematically hunted down across empires, torn apart, and thrown into roaring fires. Reading its forbidden words became a severe crime punishable by total, brutal excommunication from the holy flock. The text was virtually eradicated from the libraries of Europe and the Middle East, condemned to become a dead, forgotten relic buried beneath the ashes of history. The graveyard of fallen angels was essentially erased from Western memory. Yet, the echo of this ancient terror managed to survive in a fortress of jagged stone where the iron reach of Roman censors simply could not penetrate. Far beyond the burning deserts of Egypt, hidden within the towering, impassable mountain peaks of East Africa, the text found an impenetrable sanctuary. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church operated completely outside the violent grip of the Mediterranean empires. While the West incinerated every trace of the Watchers, Ethiopian monks quietly and fiercely copied the apocalyptic visions into the ancient Ge'ez language. They did not just preserve the manuscript in the dark, they elevated it to the absolute status of unquestionable canonical scripture. For over 1,000 years, this isolated kingdom guarded the complete cosmic map of the angelic rebellion. It remained a perfectly sealed theological time capsule, protected by deadly terrain and a fierce, unyielding devotion. When European explorers finally managed to bring a complete codex back to the West centuries later, the academic establishment was violently shocked. They stubbornly refused to believe that this bizarre epic of cannibal giants, forbidden metalworking, and bleeding skies could predate Christianity. They dismissed it as a fake, until the Dead Sea Scrolls emerged from the dirt to prove its ancient origins with cold, hard science. The science proved that the most radical part of this ancient text was not the monsters, but the ultimate, terrifying end of the world. High above the weeping, chained generals, the skeletons of the greedy empires, and the dormant beasts of the earth, sits the Ancient of Days. His garments outshine the blazing sun, and before him lie the open books where every single tear, extortion, and murder has been meticulously recorded by the universe. Beside this terrifying patriarch stands the Son of Man, a pre-existent cosmic judge whose name was hidden in the void before the stars were even ignited. The Book of Enoch introduced this messianic figure not as a gentle philosopher, but as an apocalyptic warlord ready to execute total annihilation. Historically, this specific text laid the explosive, undeniable theological groundwork that would directly inspire the original Christian movement centuries later. He does not come to negotiate. He comes to shatter the teeth of the wealthy sinners, tear corrupt kings from their thrones, and unleash the torrential fire that wipes the earth clean of all imperial rot forever. In the end, ancient empires have fallen, invincible generals have turned to dust, but the visceral pain of ancient humanity survived in the form of these towering monsters. The fallen angels and the giants of Enoch are not literal demons lurking in the dark. They are the physical, archaeological trauma of real people being crushed by absolute power. If you survived this brutal scientific dissection of history, subscribe to the channel to join those who dare to look the true, bloody history of the world dead in the eye, or click the video on screen to see exactly how every single plague of Egypt actually happened according to science.